What's up and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today we're going to talk about Robert De Niro's latest family comedy called The War with Grandpa.
Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas, everyone!
Over the years, I've noticed one main thing. People often prefer to see Robert De Niro in more of a dramatic position, something that can be seen as award-worthy, and I'll admit he's often really good in those types of roles. I, however, have always liked to see the more charming, lighthearted, funny side to him. I never really cared that much about the guy until I saw him as the hilarious dad in Meet the Parents, for instance. So whenever he does something a little bit more silly than normal, I'm all in. This film has garnered some negative reception though, so it's time to find out if it's something that I also hated or if I found the scintillating humor fun enough. Let's get cracking. This review was brought to you by the word of the day, scintillating, witty, aka brilliantly clever. The War with Grandpa focuses on young Peter Decker, who has to move into the attic and hand over his beloved bedroom to his grandfather, who moves in with them. Unhappy with the transition, Peter decides to declare war on his grandfather to get the room back, and hijinks ensue. First of all, I want to say that I understand the message that the film is trying to convey, that, war is never a good thing, that if you partake in it, that people will get hurt, but this is a message that is mostly glossed over, and you don't really feel it because both the grandpa and the kid are playing all these pranks on each other from beginning to end. From a certain childlike perspective, I can see the appeal. If I were younger, I might even have a lot of fun with it in general, because we've all had our, little familial rivalries as kids, so we can relate to a certain degree, and I'm guessing you could sense a but coming, I have a lot of personal issues with this film, so my score is going to be massively affected negatively when it comes down to my bias. Let's talk about that for a second. I've been in my own wars with family members past the sibling rivalry stage. These wars have gotten ugly, and as the film sometimes suggests, it's not good. People get hurt, sometimes permanently, and the wars that I've had in the past were all for what I felt were legitimate reasons. This film, and I get that it's a kid's movie, is all petty. Look, Robert De Niro's grandfather in this movie is not a jerk. He's not a guy that you'd naturally want to get into a fight with because his grandpa is caring, understanding, loving, sweet. The entire reason why he's moving into this house in the first place is because he's a recent widower, so he's lonely and grieving, and all he has in life is this family and, some random possessions that he keeps with him, like a marble collection that actually means a lot to him, and a jar of cookies. This kid wants his room back, so he's willing to destroy that collection of marbles just so they can say, Grandpa lost his marbles, but this guy spent so many years collecting them, and you just ignore that. What this kid is doing, regardless on whether it's juvenile pranks or not, is hurting his grandfather, the only one he's got. And I had a hard time laughing at that, especially because this grandfather was as loving as he was, and not a bully. If the grandpa was mean, then it'd be another story altogether because, look, there's one person in the entire movie that would make sense to pick a fight with. And that's the school bully that's constantly picking on Peter, yet Peter never stands up for himself or wages a war on this bully who's actually asking for a war. Instead, Peter picks on a loved one. I don't get it. As someone who no longer has grandparents, I would never do this to my grandpa. I would have given him my bedroom in a heartbeat because family means more to me than a room with 4 walls and a roof. The one glowing remark this film has is, I like the cast. Especially the older folks in the movie that played by De Niro, Uma Thurman, Jane Seymour, Christopher Walken, Rob Riggle. The cast they got is honestly a shock to me based on the movie itself, but it really was one of the best parts of the film and the primary reason why I kept watching. That being said, let's go ahead and break down my final score for a second. From a technical, unbiased perspective, this film was mostly as expected for a modern family comedy. It isn't really ever trying to stand out as far as technical marvels go, so nothing in terms of visuals, cinematography, editing, music, sound, or anything like that stands out. It's all as average gets. But I did like the casting. I thought that worked out pretty well, so this score is 68%. But this is where things start to get a little bit complicated because now we're talking about my personal bias. Again, I got a bad taste in my mouth when I saw this because family is pretty important to me, and I know what waging a war on a family member can actually do to a person, but what I can't do is imagine waging a war on my grandparents. It's all silly fun. I know, it's a kids movie, I know, but kids also need to know the importance of family. So my personal bias score, 20%. When we average out the two scores together, we come to the final rating of 44%, 44 out of 100 possible stars, or an F letter grade. I can't say I knew what I was expecting, but if I had made the movie, there would be one major shift that I would have done. I would have made the grandpa mean. I would have made him a jerk so that the pranks on him were at least partially legitimate. But being horrible to an old man that loves his family this much is just cruel. Maybe I'm just too partial on it. Let me know your thoughts on the film in the comment section down below. Have you seen it? And if you have, what are your thoughts on it as a whole? As for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button, and the bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out.
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert. He is the #1 critic that I go to when I need a movie pick. Thanks for joining up with us.